I need your help. There's this lost episode of a show I used to watch not that long ago, during the early 2010s when I was still a kid, watching Nickelodeon. I have no doubt that you're familiar with that show. Most people are. It was a pretty good show as well, all things considered, but I only watched a handful of episodes. The most prominent episode I remember, at the time, was the following. The episode was called Lincoln-stien, apparently a play on Frankenstein in that regard, but even so. The episode is lost media now because apparently this one was too disturbing for it to be aired twice, and it was only aired once. Some people allegedly say they have recordings of the episode, although no people can specify that claim in its almost entirety. And that finally brings me to myself. I don't have the episode, and I'm not going to pretend that I do have the episode recorded. But what I can say is I remember it vividly. And what I'm about to share with you today is the bulk of this story, and what tale you're going to be in for. By the end of it, you may hate me, or you may like me for opening you up to this new creepy lost episode. Either way, sit back and relax. Not that I'd like saying that, because it was pretty disturbing looking back on it, but all things considered, it's a good tale nevertheless. The episode opens with a special title card, probably referring to the fact that it may have been a Halloween special. The first thing I noticed is that when the thing finally loaded, it was in this old-fashioned horror movie type theme, or whatever you'd really call it. Lincoln was on the couch, watching TV, as he would, watching some old horror movie that he quoted was lame, as he proceeded to turn the TV off, then monologuing to the camera, as he usually would, about being in a house full of people that just don't understand him, mainly his 10 sisters. The episode would then consist of Lincoln trying to think of what to do, considering that the day tomorrow would be Halloween. His first idea is to try and call Clyde, who unfortunately rings back telling Lincoln he's on holiday, getting ready for some Halloween special theme park at some amusement hotel. With that, Lincoln is left on his own and looks at the camera. He monologues and talks about the following. I don't get it. It's so unfair that even in this big house with pretty much a bunch of family around, there's nothing to do for Halloween. He then looked at the front door as the bell rings. One of, I think, Luann's friends opens the door, dressed in like a big clown costume, which then scares Lincoln into backing up and screaming about, "Oh, don't eat me," or something like that. It's kind of a funny gag admittedly, and I did laugh a couple times from what I can remember about it. Lincoln would then get angry, storming up to his room. Lisa, the smartest of the sisters I do believe, in the episode says something about creating some kind of experiment and wanting Lincoln to help with it. At first he makes a funny remark and declines it when he suddenly gets a light bulb above his head, which all of a sudden shines. Lincoln comedically just taking the light bulb off and throwing it away, like some old gag from a comedic show at the time. He then offered to, I suppose, redo the offer and help out with the experiment. Lisa led him to the room in which there was some kind of creature laying under the cover of a table. The creature would then sort of get up and groan as Lincoln would comedically run over to Lily, the youngest of the sisters, and hide behind her crib. Lisa would then sigh and tell Lincoln that nothing would go wrong. that everything was all under control. They would surely enough then get to work on the experiment, Lincoln helping out, and basically just every now and again making jabs at the camera and talking to the audience. After around a couple minutes, Lisa would then say that she finished working on her experiment, and that she would then try to get what I would assume to be a corpse, up and alive. The thing would groan, surely enough, getting up, as it did before, but this time having the capability to walk around. At first, Lincoln would laugh, saying, "Wow, that's pretty cool," and that it can actually think for itself, in a way. Lisa would then jot down some notes about her creation, saying that it is indeed pretty remarkable, but there's something missing, something that she forgot to, I suppose, think about while doing the experiment. The creature would then walk out the room and cause chaos, all the sisters running in fear, and it was only then that Lisa would realize what happened, and more or less what was wrong. Lincoln would go outside to quell the situation and bring this strange creature back to Lisa, who would make some adjustments. After another montage of random things, eventually we got to the point where they were testing it again, this time outside. It was getting dark, and I think at this point it was a little bit hard to remember, considering there was like an ad break or something. A little bit strange, but not so for a special episode. After the ad break, from what I can remember, this is where I can remember the more vividness of it. The experiment was declared a success after a bunch of meaningless filler, and eventually, Lincoln and Lisa go back to bed, and it cuts to the morning. The morning of Halloween. Lincoln wakes up a little bit excited, although kind of bummed out considering Clyde obviously wouldn't be there to share in this great day or holiday. Lincoln would go about his day and wait until night, getting ready to go trick-or-treating and dressing up in some Ace Savvy costume. That being his superhero idol in the show, who's always referred to in the comics he reads. And as Lincoln was about to go out for trick-or-treating, Lisa comes up to him and asks where or if he's seen the experiment. Lincoln shoos her off, however, not really thinking much of it, saying that he's busy and that he wants to go trick-or-treating. Sure enough, Lincoln would walk down the streets that are now desolate. Bags of candy everywhere, masks and costumes. This was pretty horrifying, Lincoln thought. Lincoln, however, would continue to walk and aimlessly look around, just looking for at least one house that he could go trick-or-treating to. All the pumpkins had been blown out, and there, in one of the houses, was movement, the lights flickering on for a brief second, then off. Lincoln was about to walk over to that house, but then did a double take. He then decided that maybe he wouldn't go to that house, saying something about he's not scared or anything, but just doesn't feel like it's a good idea. He'd walk around for a couple more minutes, and asking if anyone was there, starting to get a bit desperate. A rather comedic shot of the Lincoln-stien abomination would then show up and illuminate in the light of the street behind Lincoln, comedically scaring him as he runs away. As Lincoln runs, the thing catches up faster and faster. It is then revealed that the entire residents of the town start to also chase Lincoln, as they too are now abominations, just like himself. He continues to run and run until eventually making it back to his house. Surprisingly, no one's in there. The lights are out, and Lincoln desperately screams for all of his sisters, just wanting to see if they're okay. But no one replies. Lincoln goes up to Lisa's room, wondering at least if she's still there, and she is, perched on her bed looking down, also rather creepily, as if expecting Lincoln. He asks her what's going on and if he can help because the entire neighborhood has turned into a bunch of zombies. When she looks up, "Join us, Lincoln. Join us." A more realistic outlook on the characters in 3D then popped up on the screen, the renders being quite horrific, scaring Lincoln, as then the episode ends with Lincoln's screams and the groans of the undead. In that regard, you may think that the episode isn't all that scary. There's no blood or internal organs being thrown about everywhere, and while that is true, what unsettles me the most are Lincoln's screams at the end of the episode. Because even though nothing is seen, it is implied that we hear Lincoln and his final last words